All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go over the rotations practice on Edulastic. I'm getting quite a few questions about it. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first question was rectangle A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime is the image of the rectangle A, B, C, D after which of the following rotations. So when you take a look at it here, we want to see, okay, this is our original image, and then here's our rotated image. So what ended up happening what kind of movement was done? Well, let's see if we can kind of X out or eliminate some of these answer choices. So we know that if my figure is in quadrant 1, if it were to do a 180-degree rotation, that's 2 quadrants. So right now it only went 1 quadrant over. So we definitely, in order for it to be, say, 180, okay, we're going to cross that one out, it would have to be 2 quadrants. So it would end up in quadrant 3. So we know it's not that one. Now, we didn't talk about a 45-degree rotation, so that would be half a quadrant. So it looks like it moved a full quadrant, not half. So we're going to go ahead and X that one out too. And so I have 2 choices. I have counterclockwise and I have clockwise. So what I can do is I want to take a look and I want to see, all right, which direction, if I only have 90 degrees left, which direction did I move? Well, I moved in this direction here, right? So which direction is that? So if we look at a clock, clockwise is going to be going in that direction, right? And then we have counterclockwise. Sorry, I'm writing with my computer here. Is going to go in the opposite direction. So it's going to go that direction there. So which direction does it look like it's going? Well, it looks like it's going counterclockwise. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select 90 degrees counterclockwise. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. So here you had to drag in these options and into the type of transformation that you saw. So the first one, a checker piece is slid from one spot to another. So sliding, okay, if we can remember, sliding is translation. All right, a tire is turned to put air into it. A turn, that's another word for rotation. A phone is turned to look at a picture, rotation, a turning. All right, and one side of a leaf is the same as the other side. So that would be a reflection. Okay, all right, so there you go. All right, let's take a look at this one. Now, I had a lot of you guys kind of get this one confused, and I think I know why. 270 degrees. Our examples that we went over in our notes were only 90 and 180. I didn't actually show you a 270, although it is in your notes. So the rule for 270 degrees is, if you look at your notebook, now it says clockwise. So 270 degrees clockwise is going to be the X and the Y coordinate are flipped and the Y becomes the inverse. So I want the 5 and the 3, those are going to switch places. So I'm looking for 5 and 3, right, which we know all of these are. And the Y value becomes the inverse. So right now our Y is negative, so the inverse of negative would be positive. So this is the one that I would end up with. Okay. All right. Now, next one. So here we have point K, which is 6 comma negative 3, is rotated 180 degrees clockwise. What's the coordinate of K prime? So 180 degree, whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise, remember it's the same thing. So the rule for 180 degrees clockwise or counterclockwise is going to be, let's see if I can type, maybe that's better. It's going to be, so if you have your X and your Y, right, the rule is going to end up being you take your X and it becomes a negative, and then your Y stays positive. All right, so if I have 6 and negative 3, so my X becomes the inverse. So now instead of positive 6, I'm going to end up with negative 6. And then my 3 is going to stay as is, negative 3. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to take a look at that. All right, so what I did just notice is that I kind of wrote this rule wrong, right? They should both be the inverse. So then that means this -3 is now going to become this +3. So there is our rule, right? So I'm looking for -6 and 3. So the x and the y stay at the same place, but they become inverses of each other. So that's what we should get, -6 and 3. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. Now, for question number 5, it says, look at the shape and then which image shows a rotation. So if it's going to be a rotation, we want the image to be turned. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to see if there are any options where the image has the same orientation, and I'm going to kind of X those out. So I'm going to take a look at the image here. So I see that I have this kind of long diagonal here. I have a horizontal line here and then this diagonal here, right? So I'm going to take a look and see, okay, which ones kind of match that same orientation? Well, B does, right? It looks like they just took your image here and they pushed it down and over. So that's a translation, all right? Now, C, if we take a look at C, what are they doing with C? Well, if I take a look at the first one, if I were to reflect it, meaning fold it downward or flip it downward, I end up with C. So C is not going to be the option. If I look at A is going to be my choice because it looks like my triangle was turned, right? It looks like maybe they turned it downward here, or they could have turn, and then turn, right? So A would be your best option. All right, now let's take a look at number 6. Now it says angle ABC is rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. So we're going to go in the other direction about the origin. So it's rotated from the origin. What are the coordinates of A? So 90 degrees counterclockwise. So if we take a look and we kind of write in our rule, right? So our rule for 90 degrees counterclockwise is going to be, so you have your point X and Y, and your rule is going to be 90 degrees counterclockwise. It's going to be negative Y and X. Okay, so if my point A is 3 and 0, okay, so let's talk about how would that affect how would that affect that point? Well, the X and the Y would need to switch places. So now I have my 0. Now the Y would become the inverse. 0 is neutral, has no sign, so I leave it as 0. And then 3 kind of stays put there. All right, so my answer would be 0 and 3. Okay, so when we take a look at our options, all right, I would end up with 8, 0, 3. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. All right, similar to the other one, we want to look at the shape. It's a different shape this time and figure out which one shows rotation. So anything that has the image in the same orientation, that is not the option. So if you take a look at this one, that one is just a translation. It looks like they move the image up. Now for C, okay, that's a reflection. So if I take my image here and I go ahead and fold it, I flip it over, I'm going to end up with my image perfect reflection on the other side. So C is not it. B is going to be your answer choice. What they did is they took your image and then they turned it so it's at the bottom part of the graph. All right, so B would be your choice. Okay, next one. So we have our point. Our point is -3, 1, and it's rotated 180 degrees clockwise. So if we take a look and we remember our rule, 180 degrees clockwise. Now in your notes, you're going to have to update that rule because I think we have kind of a mistake there. So we have our coordinate X and Y. And 180 degree rotation, remember I made that correction. It's going to be your negative X and your negative Y, or the inverse of X, the inverse of Y. Okay, so if your coordinate or if your point C is -3 and -1, all right, so we're going to keep X and Y in the same place, but they're going to become the inverse. So now I have +3 and +1. All right, so that would be my answer choice. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and plug in our answer choice. It would be +3 and +1. Here we go, A. All right. Now, last question. This is where a few of you guys got tripped up here when you were trying to graph the triangle. So, and I can see why, because without patty paper, it can be a challenge. If you do have patty paper, you can go ahead and put it on your screen, trace your triangle, and then turn it 90 degrees clockwise. But we don't have that. So I'm going to do it point by point. So if I take a look at this one here, that coordinate is going to be -1 and -4. So if I'm going to do a 90-degree clockwise, counterclockwise, rotation, that means that my x and my y are going to switch places, and my y becomes the inverse. So for this point right here, this first point, I'm going to end up with, I'm going to have +4 because it's the inverse of y, and then my -1. Okay, so I'm going to graph my point, +4, -1, +4, -1. So I'm going to put a segment there, and then I can go ahead and move it around as I need to. All right, so let's do this point here. Now this point is going to be -9, -4. So 90 degrees counterclockwise, right? So I started out in quadrant. This is 1, 2, 3. So if I'm going to move counterclockwise, I'm going to move in this direction. I'm going to end up in quadrant 4. All right, so I have, again, -9, -4. So my x and y are going to switch places. And my y, which is -4, it's going to become the inverse. So now I'm going to have +4, and then x stays -9. All right, so I'm going to go +4 and then -9. So I'm going to drag this all the way down to -9. There we go. Okay, now I need my last point here. So this point, this coordinate is -9 and -6, right? So my x and y are going to switch places. That -6 is going to become +6, and that -9 is going to stay as is. So I'm going to add another line, and I'm going to do 6 and -9. All right, so here I go, 6 and -9. So I'm going to kind of extend right here. All right, so then I'm going to go ahead and add another line, and I'm going to connect, this right there. Okay, and there you go. There you have your triangle. All right, and then once you're done, you can go ahead and submit it. So if you would like to try it again, I can go ahead and redirect everyone, or you can send me a message and I can redirect you so you can try it again. But hopefully you kind of saw the maybe mistakes or errors that you might have made. All right, thank you.